But let's talk about IT and OT value. My personal belief in looking from my experience and looking at these facilities, there is value from working together. Typically what we see in the controls environment, IT and OT converge around these big data projects. But they can engage just around cybersecurity. I posted on LinkedIn a couple days ago, I think within a 24-hour period, was Marriott, Dunkin' Donuts, and I'm forgetting the third, but all had massive security breaches. And the point is, we all live in glass houses. We all need to recognize we're all vulnerable. So why not work together in a partnership model for the IT-OT integration to work together and leverage that? Now, one reason we typically didn't work together historically was our technologies were not interoperable. Early control systems, serial cables, slow bandwidth networks, PLCs, very little overlap between what the facilities were doing and a traditional IT system. But those have converged and changed. Don't know if you can now actually buy a cloud-based SCADA system. So if you can buy SCADA in the cloud and you can run BACnet over Ethernet, and a lot of these systems are riding Wi-Fi networks, the technology barriers of working together are gone. And there are a lot of startups and adoption of companies of things like the BACnet protocol, and OPC is another standard. So there's a lot of common things that have evolved out of this. You're running Linux hardware on a lot of these devices. So IT has that value. So those technology barriers have fallen. Now, there is still a barrier that remains, cultural and functional barriers. And every time I have a deep technical conversation with my building engineer, he reminds me that we speak a different language and that I need to translate for the IT folks so that you can kind of understand what they're trying to get at. So we don't speak that common language today. A maintenance window on a PC may be a 1-hour schedule every week to patch it. The maintenance window on a facility may be once a year. It may be periodic or and depending on what system. If it's a power plant, it's going to be scheduled around when the energy contracts can cover the generation loss and those types of things. They don't all equal each other. The other thing is we're still in organizational silos. In the survey results, when we asked about security, at least 30% or thereabouts stated, it's not my responsibility, that's IT's responsibility. Now, I didn't survey IT, so I can't know if they even know that the facility security system's theirs, but sometimes those silos create those barriers that still exist. And again, on the facility side, depending on what your operation is, if you're doing pharmaceutical manufacturing or food distribution, or you're an airport or hospital, any loss of that facility or any deviation from good operations risks that mission. An office building, it does, but not as much risk from a health and safety or other conditions. So this is why it's not one size fits all. If you operate a fleet of office spaces, you're going to definitely do this differently if you're going to operate a fleet of hospitals. So definitely need to look at the two, but the facility is so tied to the operation of things like manufacturing, research and development, refrigeration and freezing for things like food development or food manufacturing, power and cooling for data centers. All those things are tied, they're intricately linked, so it only works to our benefit that we work together and overcome those barriers. So I was trying to find an example to define what I have seen over the last 30 years in these worlds, just outside of facilities as well as inside facilities. And I've come to the conclusion, for the most part, in the controls world, initially, we thought by putting up a moat and a tall wall and have no connectivity to the outside world, we would be secure. And at one era, we were secure in that model. And typically in this, we had lower level application security. We didn't change passwords. We didn't use the same password controls they do on the IT side. But we had that big wall and moat protecting us and no interconnectivity to anything else, and we were safe in our world. The problem is data has started to leave those worlds for the last 20 years on a lot of control worlds. So that security model doesn't work. The moment we punch a hole to get something out, someone can go in. So we need to really look and leverage what I call the IT security model, where they still have walls, but they have interconnectivity. So they have firewalls or different types of walls to restrict. They have internal security environments, so not all people can have access to all things, so they compartmentalize. They have master security controls, things like directory services and security vulnerability testing tools. So, and I'm not asking that we kind of merge this completely together and the controls network disappears, kind of the exact opposite. We have to find a way for them to work together in which controls remain separate and protected, and the data is moved over to the IT side for the users, but we don't put at risk and we don't give access to those control worlds, but we leverage a design model that takes that greater inherent risk that we have today. So a strategy to embrace OT and IT integration. And I'm trying to give this, and this came from a big data talk as well, but how to try to do it in a manner that's effective. One, don't look at, we got to solve all problems up front. Don't let IT come in with the heavy hand. You know, as an operational group, we definitely know our environments better, and we know what we're trying to accomplish. So IT kind of needs to be a consultant, not a dictator. So if you can define target objectives, you can define governance models where you can separate data and control, look at security tools like unidirectional gateways, like Waterfall or OWL, where you're pushing data one direction as a way to bridge to another network with reducing that risk. And then don't share everything. Share what's relevant to an asset or a process in which you're trying to get value out of that data. And so when I talk about defining mutual value, I think IT is sometimes guilty of this. I'm sure facilities and internal organizations that are typically seen as cost centers, our objectives are really aligned to maintaining and controlling our cost and providing basic visibility and operations. But we are an input to solving business challenges. You know, I could be, let's just say I'm FedEx, and my job is to ship packages all over the world. And I use massive amounts of energy for all these logistics centers and things that FedEx owns. So the reality is 50% of the energy is probably lighting and cooling that space, and 50% of energy is probably moving the package, rotating equipment, motors, conveyors. I don't need to know their process, but there's business value from a facility point of view by helping them understand that. And if you can eventually develop KPIs of cost per package or something that helps them understand the impact and the cost impact of their business, you work together in that model. So finding something that's business related, identify the operational challenges like the security pieces, use best practices, and pick low-hanging fruit like the Shodan website. Pick things you can close off quickly, removing the modem that's connected, those types of things. And here's just an example of a thought process, and this is more for not the building people or the individual office building, but for people that have a larger range of services from campuses to manufacturing. There are business intelligence needs and there are operational intelligence needs. And this is the problem we see a lot of companies get into. They're trying to solve all things on the business side and not recognizing the value that a facility engineer or any engineer has on being able to respond to data more quickly. So that list in the middle, optimization, predictive modeling, those are just steps. Why is it happening? What actions? These are a good litany of questions you can ask yourselves as you do that business value proposition of where that solution should be. Should it remain in the control world? I don't really need to give that out to that data sharing model, or maybe it slices in half and I need to share that data. So definitely a set of questions you can ask and pose to yourself as you go through in developing your objectives. And why do we care? Of course, risk reduction, resilience, keeping our facilities safe, keeping our facilities available, doing it at the most effective cost and services. We do this because we are still cost centers in a manner of speaking, so we want to optimize and our asset performance. We want to know and we want to maintain those assets. So there's a lot of different drivers for sharing that data, and that all kind of come together. And so, again, you pick your reasons. You pick reasons you want to share data. You pick your business processes, and then you pick why you care. They're all unique to you. It could be that I have 500 locations all over the world, and I want to have real-time awareness that the refrigerators are on or the power is on. Or I run operating rooms, and I want to know humidity and temperature. I want to provide those proactive services as control gets moved to more and more to the consumer. And so we see our own world environment evolving where users are getting more control than they would have traditionally in a building system. So with that, we have to bring data to support and to protect us in those spaces. So again, they will all be yours, unique to you, to give you some ideas. So again, this is flying at about 50,000 feet with a couple of ideas of things you can try. Again, the goal is just to be aware that 50% of us have never completed a security audit, and 70% of us have remote access. We have vulnerabilities. We have risks. And trust me when I say we all live in glass houses, and we can't be the one that thought it was never going to happen to us and have it happen to us. So we have to be prepared. We have to be responsive. We just can't say it's IT's responsibility and kick the can down the road.